Being diagnosed with low ovarian reserve at 34 is not something anybody wants to hear, but it actually happens more often than you would think. If that was you, maybe you were told that you have to start doing IVF immediately because your chances are running out and your opportunities are low to conceive. And that can be super scary, especially considering that the percentages of being successful with low ovarian reserve are already low. But I want you to know that there's potentially another way. That plan doesn't necessarily have to be yours. And today we're gonna hear a real live story from a woman who was in my Hope fertility coaching program who had that exact same thing happen to her. She was told she had low ovarian reserve at 34 and that she needed to do IVF now or her chances were gone. Well, I'm not one to really be a big spoiler, but I do want to let you know that there is a happy ending at the end of this story. But I want you to hear from her. I want you to hear her story, and as always, I'm going to comment on her story and let you know what we found and what we did. And hopefully that bit of information is going to help you along on your fertility journey and help you get pregnant just like she was able to. So let's keep watching and hear her story. My name is Dr. Marc Sklar, also known as Fertility Expert, and I've been working with couples for over 19 years through my online coaching programs and right here in San Diego at my clinic. And this story of low ovarian reserve at any age, but certainly at a younger age, is something that we see quite often and something that I do believe has other foundational root causes that if we address them, you can get pregnant. And we're gonna hear one of those stories right now. Okay, let's jump into it. It's a beautiful story. I'm just gonna hit play so you can hear from her, and then I'll pause periodically to comment about her story and her journey.
I started the program, I believe it was sometime in March, I believe, or it was in the spring of this year, or actually 2021, because we're in 2022 now. Yes, and so before I started the program, I actually had gone to my OB and I was telling my OB how I was interested in getting pregnant. I wanted to get pregnant, and I know I was getting a little older. So at the time I was 34, about to turn 35 in the summer.
I have to mention just something right here. It kills me that we consider 34 and 35 getting older. I mean, it's such a foreign concept. At some point we do need to move away from that, but for all intents and purposes right now, that is considered older in the fertility world.
I actually was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. So I actually have psoriasis and I also have psoriatic arthritis. So with all of that, I just was a little bit more concerned, and also due to the fact that I did try to start just a little later in life, you know, compared to like if I was in my late 20s or early 30s. And so the doctor said, you know, it sounds like you should be okay, but let's just, you know, give you some, or let's just do some blood work, make sure that everything looks good. And if everything's good, then we can, you know, you should just start to try and, you know, in 6 months, if you don't get pregnant, then come back to see me. And so we did some blood work, and it turned out that I had low eggs. And so whenever they did the blood work, they ended up sending me right away to see an IVF doctor.
So low eggs, in her words, means low ovarian reserve. Okay, so they probably did her AMH levels. I say probably, I know they did because I have the results. They did her AMH test. They saw that it was on the lower side. They thought that it was too low for her age, and so they were concerned, and so they sent her to a reproductive endocrinologist.
And when I had gone to the endocrinologist, they did more blood work, and one of the things that they said to me, long story short, we ended up doing, you know, a couple of different blood work panels, and they said that it would probably, that my egg count was very low, and it looked like I was going into early menopause. My egg count looked like I was, you know, somebody who was maybe in my early 40s, and that I was going into early menopause. And so they wanted me to get tested and do some additional blood work, and also for my husband. And then after all of that, they basically said that, you know, it sounds to me like you have very low egg count. I'm very concerned about you. They even mentioned that it probably would take about 3 cycles of IVF, and that the chances of it working would probably be about 30%.
So 3 IVF cycles, each one of those is going to cost about, let's just round it out and say $20,000. And they said, and her odds with those 3 rounds are still very low, that they didn't believe that she was going to get pregnant even with those, that her chances were still low. So she was asked to spend, let's just say $60,000 to do IVF with very little chance or hope that it was going to be successful. That's what they asked her to do.
Success rate. And so in my mind, I was thinking, okay, so you're telling me that I'm probably going to be spending a whole lot of money and that the chances of it working was only 30%. So it was quite stressful. And even, you know, when I talked to Dr. Marc, he kind of,
I will tell you guys saw I sounded surprised because she said the same thing I did. I don't always listen to the testimonial before I do this video because I like to hear it for the first time so I can comment fresh on my perspective to it. So that was the first time I'm hearing it, and her and I were on the same page thinking the same thing.
And I guess during the time when I had started to try, I wasn't ovulating regularly. So my cycle was pretty irregular. And just from the stress of trying and hearing all this, I think it actually threw my cycle off, because the reason I actually ended up using Dr. Marc was because at the time I hadn't had a period in over, I think it was like 2 or 3 months. So it had been a while. And, you know, I just could tell that my stress level, I'm one of those people who I just really like to always do research and try to, like, you know, figure out what to do or what next to do. And I think it was just kind of getting to the point where I was actually driving myself a little crazy, and just kind of, you know, trying to figure out what was wrong.
So this is something we hear often, right? That we want to control everything. We want to know more. So we're going to do more research. And then with that research, we get more stressed and more worked up because, oh, we're going to do a little bit of this, and oh, I read I should do this. And so it's really confusing. And so that is actually one of the reasons she reached out as well. There were multiple reasons. That was one of them, is because she wanted someone to guide her, so she wasn't guiding herself the whole time, because it was confusing. It's really difficult to address your needs when you're in it and see clearly, which is why we often need support and a coach to help guide us through the forest and get us on to the other side. And that's exactly what she was able to do with the right support. But that's also why she looked for that support.
So I decided, you know what, I think honestly, for my sake and just for me to get some sleep, I think it's best that I
She wasn't sleeping
hire
because
somebody.
of it.
And honestly, I found out about Dr. Marc on YouTube. And so, you know, finding,
Right here.
you know, watching his videos, it was very, very reassuring to me, because I was very in line with what he wanted to do. I really wanted to give my body a chance first, although I know that with the fact that I have autoimmune conditions and just my past history of, you know, everything, I know that my body has failed me before, but I'm like, okay, I still want to try before we automatically go into IVF. I mean, not only is it expensive, but that's really, you know, a lot of stress on me and my husband. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to use Dr. Marc. And I'm so glad I did, because I think one of the best things for me that reassured me was being able to get the answers that I needed when I wanted it. And so it was really nice to be able to get on those weekly calls and to be able to talk to him, because if I had a question, he was able to answer it. And I felt like, you know, it wasn't rushed. You know, I was able to have my questions personally answered, which was really, really helpful for me. And it just really gave me just that peace of mind that I needed to know that I was doing what was best for me.
So she commented saying how valuable it was to be part of the HOPE program, because she had a direct contact with me and my team and was able to get her questions answered whenever she needed them answered. And that's one of the beautiful things about the program, is that all the members have access to me and my team on a daily basis through our private group. And if they've got questions and urgent things that come up in that time frame, they can post them there, and we're actively involved in answering those questions there. But not only that, is we do have a weekly live call that everyone has an opportunity, everyone who wants has an opportunity to ask questions and engage with us so that we can support them in a conversation and go back and forth. And that's what she was alluding to. And it's such a beautiful, I love doing those calls because it's so valuable to everybody listening. Even if you don't have any questions, just listening to the questions and hearing the answers really gives you a lot of knowledge and understanding, which is exactly what she was able to figure out. Now, I do want to comment here real quick that for her, even though she was told that she had low ovarian reserve, really my focus wasn't really specifically on her ovarian reserve. I was focused in different places. I actually took her off some of the things she was taking for her ovarian reserve because it was impacting her hormones negatively. So this actually is where the details come in. It's being able to filter through and determine what's the most important thing and where do we spend our efforts first, and then where do we progress from there.
And so I started with him in March of 2021, and I actually found out I was pregnant. I want to say it was in November. Yeah, so in November.
It was.
So I'm actually currently right now, I am 25 weeks pregnant.
Yay.
And so, you know, one of the other things that I really honestly, so I'm a hygienist, and I actually already do tell all my patients, anybody that's trying or anybody that's a little older than me, I always guide them to Dr. Marc, and I'm like, oh, you should watch his YouTube videos. And so I've actually directed a lot of my patients to Dr. Marc. But for me, the other thing is like knowing after I got pregnant that I could still use him. Right away when I found out I was pregnant, Dr. Marc actually gave me a personal phone call, and he guided me through it. And the other thing I was really concerned about was that my mom, she actually had, I think it was like either 4 or 5 miscarriages. And so being able to use Dr. Marc and being able to be guided on the right path, take the right medicine, all of this I really think really helped me to prevent me from getting a miscarriage, because that was the other thing I was concerned about. When I first found out I was pregnant, I felt like I was just, I always tell my patients I was cautiously optimistic, just because I love that word. Like, okay, any day now, something could happen. But it was just also that reassurance of knowing that, he was always there for me. And he still is, if I had any questions, I'm sure I could definitely ask him and he answers it right away. But it's just the best. And honestly, so
I'm going to stop here for a moment because I want to go over her case just briefly. Now, she mentioned actually that she had autoimmune issues. She does. She didn't have it in the past, but it wasn't really being addressed and supported properly. So through my assessment and through the plan that we created for her, we created a plan that was meant to be supportive to her immune system, to support her through lifestyle, through diet, and through supplements, to support that entire aspect of what she was dealing with. Additionally, she had a history of digestive issues. And if you've heard me talk before, you know how important that is for me. Your immune system starts in the gut. And so inherently, we had to address that anyway, regardless. And for me, that's the foundational piece for her as well. So addressing her immune system, supporting her digestive system and proper gut health. And that to me was the missing key. Everything she was doing prior to that was really focused on egg quality. Not saying it wasn't valuable, but I didn't think that was the root issue, because when you have autoimmune issues and you have digestive issues, that conceiving is not the main priority for your body. And regulating those hormones is not the main thing. So we had to take off that stress for her, support her immune system, support her digestive system so her body can focus on what it needed to do, which was regulating her hormones and getting pregnant. And that's what we were able to do. Additionally, some of the supplements she was taking that were impacting her hormones were actually impacting them negatively and causing her numbers to go too high. And so we had to regulate that as well. And so sometimes when we are self-prescribing and self-supporting ourselves, we can't see all of that and recognize where we need to start and then where we need to go next. And that was one of the biggest pieces for her to get her to her results and get her finally pregnant. Let's keep listening.
It is a big investment to spend, but IVF is the bigger investment. And, I think that being able to do it naturally is always the best. And honestly, I couldn't recommend him more to anybody, but I do recommend him all the time. Yeah, so they really wanted me to start right away. And at the time, I was like, I don't think I gave my body enough of a chance to really.
This is going back to her
try
IVF
to get
doctor.
pregnant
They
naturally.
wanted her to
And
do
so
IVF
Dr.
right
Marc
away.
did have me on a like a protocol to really just improve my quality of health, and even my the quality of my eggs, and including my husband's sperm as well. So I think that really helped.
We can't forget the male partner, and if there's any reason to support them, we always do that because that's such a valuable piece, and in this case it was also really important.
And also with Dr. Marc's help, but I did not have to do IVF.
So we love the fact that she wasn't needing to do IVF and that she was able to get pregnant on her own. That might not be the case for everybody, but I think the most important piece here is that just because you've been told you have low ovarian reserve doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. And doesn't mean you can't get pregnant naturally. She was able to, and I believe that many of you watching right now are also able to. But you do need the proper plan and support to get those results. Not only that, everyone had their blinders on. Everything was always focused on her egg quality and ignoring her immune system and her digestive system, and really just trying to regulate and support her body to overall health so that it can do what it needed to do. And that really, I believe, was the missing piece for her and what really opened the door to allow her to conceive and get pregnant and be pregnant right now. And so for all of you watching, if you're in a similar situation, you do have a chance. You do have hope, but we do need to find the right plan for you, the right root issues for you so that we can guide you in the right way. If any of you watching want more support like she was able to get, then I want to invite you to join my Hope Fertility Coaching Program. All you have to do to apply is use the link in the description below. And then we will be able to set up a time to talk with you if you qualify and find out if this is the right program for you. Regardless, I want to hear from all of you. What did you like about this video? What did you like about her testimonial? What did you find valuable? Comment below and let me know. Additionally, if you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you're not already a subscriber to my YouTube channel, then I want to invite you to subscribe by hitting that bell and getting notified when I put out a new video for all of you. Alright, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week with a new one. Until then, stay fertile.